Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we are taking a look over here at the altcoin market. We'll peek over there at the Bitcoin price chart as well, which, just like the altcoin market, is hovering right there above the 2018 all-time high. And as we head into this weekend or this holiday weekend for fathers, I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. I am a father. I have a couple of small kids. We have some plans this weekend. It'll be nice. But of course, we're heading into this weekend with some dramatic high intensity price action of where we're at. It's been a real rough week after we cross all those lines in the sand. I've been making videos for 8 days straight right now. The 11th video in that time frame as we've gone through all of this chaotic action in here. Once we broke the lines in the sand and the market just kept moving down, and really just a lot of drama this week, right? With Celsius coming out and freezing everybody's funds, and then the hedge funds and Three Arrows Capital and the liquidations, and whoa boy. What a wild week for us to end up back here at the all-time high for the altcoin market cap and for Bitcoin as we head into the holiday weekend for fathers. So yesterday was a pretty chaotic action in the stock market. It was a chaotic day over here in the cryptocurrency market as well. Even though prices didn't really set new lows yesterday, we did actually kind of just go back to where we were the day before. The difference was we closed the day down there, but it's still real dramatic as we're now back here just kind of hovering at these lows of the most extreme pain that we can get. Based on at least the extreme pain that we have seen so far. So we're still sitting down there. There's no sign of huge reversal coming in. There has been volume down in here. Of course, this all happened during the Federal Reserve meeting, so it's not like buyers just stepped in. So there's no signs of actual reversals coming in yet. So there's no evidence that we're not going to have a chaotic weekend. We could very well have one should things choose to break down from here, which they could, but it's interesting to see both of these getting there at the same time. There has to be a lot of elements that have to happen from a confluence standpoint for all those things to happen, for a whole collective market and a single asset to both reach those things at the same time. And, as we know, even for the altcoin market here, hovering right back near that 200-week moving average, and Bitcoin really peaking below it. So I won't be able to put out any videos this weekend, but the things that I'll be looking for this weekend are to see, hey, are we going to close above that 200-week moving average? We could see in the past when we had capitulated with Bitcoin here back in 2014. We had the same kind of thing, right? A little bit of a double bounce and then off into capitulation we went. However, it did reclaim it before the week was over. And in 2018's capitulation, it was able to maintain it there. We're going to look at it really close to see it was able to maintain it before the week was over, even though it did poke below it. You could see in the 2020 sell-off when C19 was happening, it actually did kind of close that candle below there, but then, reclaimed it the next week. So whether or not it has any significant meaning, this will close in 2 days from right now. So from me recording right now, 2 days and 10 hours, of course, is going to be Sunday evening for most people who watch this show, but whenever our weekly candle closes. And I'm not holding my breath too much that it's going to, but in order to do so, it needs to close above about 22,400. Now we can look through history and see what's happened after we go through prolonged bear periods for Bitcoin. How oversold does the RSI get by the time it gets there before it can find some support and then finally end up holding itself and start creating a new cycle to start going? We can see how oversold it gets in here. We definitely have matched those conditions down in here to reach down to that oversold level on the weekly time frame. So it's not unreasonable, but we're dealing with the macro headwinds at the exact same time with the stock market heading down. And really the things that make me super uncomfortable is ever since the Luna and UST, who are the casualties in that? Now we have Celsius, who's going to be the casualties in that? Now you got Three Arrows Capital, who's the casualties in that? Who's next? What's up with Tether? Why is Tether not getting itself repegged back to $1? Why is it still volatile in here and getting down? Coming back, still not reclaiming. Hard to know, but we'll head into the weekend and see how things go throughout the weekend and see if we end up holding these all-time highs and see if those 200-week moving averages end up meaning anything. I think really the most interesting thing that happened this week is what happened with the Bitcoin plus the Ethereum dominance. Now, there's no question this market has just been beaten up, and I don't know if the beating is going to come to an end anytime soon. I'm very disappointed in a lot of these altcoins. Most of my portfolio, my altcoin portfolio that I have is absolutely getting decimated. It doesn't feel good. I don't see any end in sight in there. There's never been a time in history where we've had 11 straight red weeks in a row. We can look through even previous bear markets for some type of relief to come out in here, some type of something. There's never been 11 weeks before in history. It's the most painful time that market has experienced since I've been in. And I've been in from back here, and right back in here is where I got into this market. Never seen a time period where you have 11 red weeks in a row with no type of relief. So is that an underlying like collapsing issue? I don't know. But what I see is that, and this is something that we followed for a whole year. It was discovered this week that suddenly on Monday the 13th, the Bitcoin plus the Ethereum dominance finally took its turn to the downside that we've been looking at for almost a year at this point to see that actually end up happening. Because this structure has always signaled that it is not a bullish reversal structure, but this is a continuation structure. And so if the Bitcoin and the Ethereum dominance continue to fall, what does that mean for the altcoin market? Does that mean a balance is finally going to come in at that all-time high? You know, we can look through the past to see what has happened each time these things break new levels and go into a plunge for the Bitcoin and Ethereum dominance. Each time that has happened, it was positive for the altcoin market. Does that mean some type of big altcoin season is coming, or does that mean some type of big retracement is coming in the altcoin market? I'm really not sure. I'm going to kind of gauge it as it comes. It's getting harder to keep the faith on, something crazy is coming in the altcoin market outside of some type of retracement, if we even get one, with how bad the narrative is out there. But there's no question we could see this happening in here. What happens if we finally get the continuation of the Bitcoin and the Ethereum dominance starting to plunge? And that could mean different things. The 3 times that it has happened, it represented big runs in the remainder of the altcoin market to the upside. But does this actually signal maybe a complete collapse of Ethereum? Now, I'm not predicting that. I don't see how that could even be reasonably possible. Ethereum's one of the most popular smart contract platforms in cryptocurrency. It makes 0 sense to me for Ethereum to legitimately actually collapse to 0. But the target for this whole move for the Ethereum plus Bitcoin dominance is down there at around 40%. So where it's currently sitting at right now, it's a drop of about 17% of the dominance of those two assets. Ethereum's dominance sits at about 15% right now. So would it go to 0? That doesn't make any logical sense to me. I mean, the thing that makes sense to me for Ethereum is, likely a move down to 12 or 13 or 10 or something. I don't really know. Charting out an actual dominance chart's quite difficult, but the reality is, I couldn't imagine it going to 0, and that 15% of this move down in here, and the only reason why this would even fall way down here is because Ethereum goes to 0. It seems unlikely to me. That's not the things that have happened here historically. They've been rises in the altcoin market every time we have big plunges. Once these levels break, it has been rises in the altcoin market when that happens. But technically speaking, when we're just hypothetically talking about what this chart actually means, that could even happen, right? You could actually have Ethereum go to 0. That's why 15% of the dominance disappears from this chart, and the rest of the altcoin market doesn't do anything price action wise. That's why there is a somewhat of a flaw to this actual chart, because it could technically mean that. Every time it's happened, that's absolutely not what it meant. It always meant altcoins went on a big run, but it technically could even mean that. It could mean Ethereum going to 0. And I find it so insanely unlikely that's what would happen, is that Ethereum would go down that far. So please don't misconstrue me as saying Ethereum's going to 0. We're just trying to work out the nuances of this actual chart and what it means when this metric is moving down to the downside. We do know what it has meant historically, and it meant that the altcoin market was moving up rapidly. Does that actually mean we're going to get an alt season, or does that actually mean we're just going to see some big retrace and Ethereum and Bitcoin aren't going to have that big of a retrace? It's trying to figure out what could all of these things mean, because this structure has been something that we've been looking for. We're finally starting to get it to play out. Now, what comes next in here? Is it a big run in the altcoin market? Is it a retracement in the altcoin market? Or is it a big plunge that happens in Ethereum and Bitcoin and the altcoin market doesn't get impacted by it as much? We don't know, but we could see how the structure has played out so far. It's played out very similar to what happens to when continuations and capitulations end up coming in here. And the measured move of a move like this takes us down to about 40%. So what does that mean? Does that mean either Ethereum goes into collapse? Does it mean Bitcoin goes into a collapse? Or does it mean a recovery comes into this market, a retrace finally comes into this market, and the altcoin market massively outperforms just like it did back in here? Because that's what the condition was in the market right in here, was that the market actually went back into a retrace for Bitcoin, and that the altcoin market surged into that moment. We've had no retrace in this market. Is that finally what's happening in here? I'll take it. I'll take it all day. But we don't know. But this was the biggest development that I noticed on the under the hood of what was happening with the market this week, was that we finally got that. And it's something that we've been waiting for all this time, for almost a year at this point, for us to finally get there. So it doesn't say it's ready to start going just yet. It could pause out in here. What does that mean for the market during that pause out? I don't know. But I thought that was the biggest development from under the hood and under the fundamentals of potential rotation in this market, because there's been no big rotation happening since April of last year. So I'll keep the video short and sweet. The things I'm going to be looking for throughout the weekend is to see, can any high buy volume come in here? Because we don't see it yet. There's all the threats of the liquidations down to the downside. Can there be any high buy volume that can make itself present? We'll see how the stock market does for the rest of the day as we head into the closing of the week. I'll be watching the weekly close over there on Bitcoin to see if it closes above 22,400 to maintain that 200-week moving average. And while I'm excited to see this happen, because I'm mostly positioned in the altcoin market, I do know it can pause out in here for a minute. And it's uncertain what will happen with the market during that time period if it does. But hopefully we can catch a bounce, and hopefully we can keep moving with some positive price action. But there's a ton of cryptocurrencies in the market. And, I can't keep my eyes on every single one of them. Sometimes you look at them, you're like, man, I wish I saw this chart earlier. It would have given me some signal to think of things a little bit differently, maybe. One of the charts I was looking at there was Band. I believe this is Band Protocol. I don't know what it is. It's over there on Coinbase. It's a popular, some of you guys are gonna be like, I can't believe you don't know what that is. Look, there's a lot of coins out there. It's hard to follow everything in this market. But when I was looking through the Coinbase charts, I was like, man, that looks just like what Ethereum Classic looked like back in 2017 and 2018. I was like, all right, let me overlay these on top of each other to kind of see how these happen, right? So with Ethereum Classic, it had its first initial run, and then finally its final peak up, and that's really what you have happening over here on Band Protocol as well. And by the time Band Protocol ended up breaking down, and by the time Ethereum Classic ended up breaking down in here and going off into its capitulation moment back in 2018 and 2019, Ethereum Classic ended up falling 67% once it was able to take out these lows over here. And if you look at really what has happened over here for Band Protocol, it's really identical here. It's got a 70% fall from that moment in time. So I was like, well, that's a lot of confluence in there for what we've seen on that particular structure in the cryptocurrency market for how capitulations have come to an end. Doesn't mean it's not just going to waddle around in here and retracements are going to be in here for quite a long time. But that signaled that the pain was done for Ethereum Classic back in 2018, and we can see the confluence of that same thing happening there on Band Protocol. So I found that interesting, and you got to match that up with everything being at the all-time high, everything being at the 200-week moving average, everything being as oversold, some of it more oversold than history, and a lot of it as oversold as it has been at bear market bottoms. Those are all a lot of confluence things. But the real hard part about it all is the things that are breaking in this market. And that's what makes it so hard for me to sit here and say, like, hey, I'm adding to my bags right now, because the Luna and Terra stuff completely tripped me out. The USDT not being pegged to a dollar trips me out. Celsius freezing the funds, going through some liquidation stuff, 3 Arrows Capital going through liquidation stuff. But I see this. And so, this gives me somewhat of a hope, because in history those were good things in here. And that, this time period, right? This was the first alt season in 2017. Then this completely paused out after Bitcoin topped. And then as Bitcoin went into its retracement, that's where this big fall ended up happening in here. Matching those up, those were very similar. I'll grab this right in here. I'll kind of show you how similar these have been, right? They've been at the same places in here. So it was an equivalent fall that happened in here. But the timing of it has been just massively stretched out. If I'm capable of grabbing that in there, it's not that stretched out, right? But they're the same size. And so when this second fall ended up happening in here, this was into a retracement of Bitcoin. We obviously haven't had one yet. Is that what's coming in here? It's what my fingers are crossed for. But we got a lot of macro headwinds out there. It's hard. One of the most difficult times in the market, if not the most difficult time in the market since I've been in here. And I actually did do some peeking around, because I thought we've never had 11 candles in the same direction in the history of time for the altcoin market. I mean, it's unprecedented. We definitely haven't had 11 red candles in a row, but I actually did find 11 green candles, which has happened one time right there. And this was number 11. And it happened to be when we got to this price level right here where we're at right now. But this was actually 11 green candles in a row. That was the end of it, long time reversal. So there has been one time in history that we can spot here on this chart where there were 11 consecutive weeks in one direction. And that did mark the top of the 2017, 2018 bull run, ended there in January of 2018 for the altcoin market. 11 weeks in the same direction in a row. How ironic. The only time it has ever happened in history, week 11 landed right here. Here we are, week 11 landing right there. So as we head into the weekend, $1 million question, will Bitcoin hold the all-time high? Will Bitcoin reclaim the 200-week moving average? Will the altcoin market also maintain that all-time high heading into the weekend? And what is the outcome of what is happening here on the Bitcoin and Ethereum dominance? Historically, they were awesome moments for the altcoin market, but we know it's a crazy time out there. So what does it really mean? I'll be looking for early indications of what it does if we actually start getting to move down. But I also have the expectation that it could pause. But if it does, hopefully we can get a clear idea of where this market is heading next. So that'll wrap it up for this 8-day stretch of videos. Again, let's be clear, sellers are still in control of this market. There's no evidence of buyers showing up yet. I think we need to see some really big green buy volume come into this market before getting too excited about anything, because the sellers are definitely still in control. But if we see anything crazy happen throughout the weekend, any buy volume really show up, I'll post about it over there on Twitter throughout the weekend. Otherwise, I want to wish all the fathers out there, all the dads out there, a happy Father's Day weekend. As dads, we try to do everything to provide for our families and take care of our families. I know that like 95% of my audience is men. A lot of you guys are dads. It's not an easy job being a dad. We get exhausted. We get our patience tested. Sometimes I'd love to go lay down in bed at 6 o'clock at night, but hey, we got to get dinner going. We got to read books. We got to go watch a TV show with the kids sometimes. And we put ourselves second compared to our kids. And it's noble, and it's time for us to have our day. So happy Father's Day, guys. I'll catch you guys on Monday. I will be off for the weekend. So thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.